I'm Julie Ross.
And I'm Elizabeth Cohen.
And this is the Parenting Horizons podcast.
Julie Ross is a parent educator and counselor with over 30 years of experience in private practice.
Elizabeth is a clinical psychologist with over 20 years of experience in private practice.
Perhaps most importantly, we're parents just like you.
Through conversations covering a wide range of different parenting topics, challenges, and roadblocks, we hope to give you some practical tools that might just help make parenting a little bit easier.
Nobody's perfect, and parenting is challenging, to say the least. But with a few skills under our belts, we might just be able to be good enough parents and enjoy the journey and our children a little bit more in the process. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Parenting Horizons podcast. I'm Elizabeth Cohen. I'm here with my co-host, Julie Ross. How are you doing today, Julie?
I'm okay. I'm okay.
I'm so
I've
glad.
been sick. I'm recovering. Thank you for asking. And hi to all of our listeners. It's great to be back.
Yeah, it's great to be with you. And I'm really excited today for our podcast interview. Today, we're going to dive deep into a conversation that many parents have told me and Julie that they need. One about how to show up with love, courage, and clarity for our LGBTQIA plus kids. Parenting can feel confusing and overwhelming at times, as we talk about on this podcast, but especially when our kids are exploring or discovering parts of their identity that we may not fully understand yet. Our guest today is Heather Hester. She's become a steady, compassionate voice for families walking this path. She's founder of Chrysalis Mama, host of the Just Breathe podcast, and author of Parenting with Pride. Through her coaching, writing, and her own lived experience as a parent, Heather helps families move from fear and uncertainty to connection, confidence, and true allyship. And I would say in reviewing Heather's work, I saw a beautiful through line that our kids don't need us to be perfect. They need us to be present, curious, and committed, which are goals that we talk about a lot on this podcast as well. And today we're going to talk about what it looks like in real everyday parenting moments and how we can build homes that support kids in this community. So welcome, Heather. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you. And one of if you'd be willing to share, we know that your own journey as a coach and as the advocate and with all your wisdom really came from your own personal experience of your kids coming out and the need to have more parent-focused resources. And we were curious if you would be open to sharing about your experience and how it led you to this work.
Absolutely. Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes, the whole thing has been very organic and very messy and very not prescriptive at all. If you had asked me 10 years ago if I would see myself doing this work that I'm doing today, I would have been like, are you out of your mind? There's no way. I mean, I am a natural introvert. I've always been a writer. Like, I like my quiet, space and, being with my kids and that's my thing, my comfort place. And so it's funny, I was talking to my oldest yesterday, who is 25 now, but when he came out as gay almost 9 years ago, we were like, I can't believe it's been, and he always laughs. He was like, I knew, Mom. I was like, well, I know you knew, and you were out to some friends, but it's been, officially it'll be 9 years in February, right? Like we always have this big celebration.
Wow.
But it really was a moment of, he was 16 years old. He was 16. And then my other three were 13, 11, and 9. And it was like one of those moments in your life where you remember it very clearly where you were, what was going on. And it was such a turning point in how I approached so many things, how my husband approached so many things, how we shifted and grew as a family. And it was not only in that exact moment, but it was over the course of the next 6 to 8 months where he struggled so much with so many different things that we did not have resources for, that we didn't know where to find the resources. We felt so alone. We were afraid to talk to people. We didn't know who was, kind of a safe person to talk to. And it really just had to work very hard and kind of like circle the wagon, so to speak, to like get this kid to a place where he was okay. It was really scary for a really long time. Um,
Yeah.
so after about 18 months, when he finally was at a good place of just like stability and, was about to go off to college, and I was holding my breath on that, and, all the things that we do as parents. And I thought, this was crazy that we had to go through all of this. This was so hard. This should not be that hard. We should not have to be this terrified as parents. Parenting is hard enough. Parenting typically developing children, right? This was not typical in any way. It was just like 5 more layers on top of like normal things that kids go through, just developmentally. So I thought, well, I'm going to create it because I can't find it. And that's what I started doing. So it really became this thing of, well, here's all of these great resources that I found. I'm going to dump them into a website. I'm going to create this organized place for people to find them. And as a writer, that's kind of how I was processing through one of my tools for processing. So I started sharing my writing. And then I thought, well, a podcast is probably a good way to get this information out to more people. So I started my podcast 6 years ago. And it started as Just Breathe, Parenting Your LGBTQ Teen. I did just rebrand earlier this year. It is now called More Human, More Kind. And so that has been just this lovely way to share with people, to have on these incredible guests who share their expertise in areas and really grow, both personally and as a community. And then, over time, the coaching kind of happened organically. The book was such a gift that was able to come into being. And so there we have it.
May I ask what specific? Listen, I understand. I have a couple members of my family who are in the LGBTQ plus community, and I love that community. I'm curious. I know for myself what felt scary. I'm curious what felt scary for you. Was it the
Mm.
lack of support in terms of the larger community? Was it fear for your son as he was going through this in high school? Was it like based on part of the community in which you live and that made it scary? I'm curious.
Absolutely. That's such a great question, because it was a little of all of those things. It was, I didn't I didn't know anybody really, really well at that point who was gay or part of the community. And I grew up in a family that was very conservative and very evangelical, parallel to evangelical. So I will say, and if, I'm open to talking about any of these things, but I will just offer that, because of that, even though we had shifted quite dramatically, my husband and I, and we're raising our kids quite differently, there still those pieces that I had grown up with. So when he told me,
Sure.
my first thought was, well, there's no way that my kid's going to hell. That was literally, so that was like, that
Oh,
was layer one. And I was like, well, I've got to figure this out because that can't be true. And I need to figure out why it's not true. And I'm going to protect this kid no matter what. And then it was, now there's like this, I'm worried because you hear, all the things you hear, right? So I want to
yeah.
understand so I can become educated enough on the community, on what they face out in the world. What is he facing in high school? What is he facing in our community?
Mhm.
What is he going to face when he goes off to college? What is he going to face when he goes to family gatherings? And there are people who say things, right? And so there were all those pieces that, there were a lot of I mean, ultimately it was all fear, right? But it was like all these pieces that
Sure.
you mentioned, and then it kind of becomes layered then on top of that, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you're also kind of, I mean, for us with him, he had a lot of mental health struggles on top of coming out. So he'd kind of been exhibiting
Uh-huh.
before. We were working with like depression and anxiety to like a kind of, I would say, like age appropriate. Like you see it in a lot of kids. I have dealt with that my whole life and worked with it and learned to manage it. And so it was something that I was like, okay, but then once he came out, it like hit this level that I was like, we don't know what to do with this, right? How do we help this kid?
Sure.
How do we find the supports that he needs? So yeah, that was a good
Hmm.
question.
Well, it sounds like one of the pieces that was really helpful for your son is something you talk about in your work, which is you getting really clear about your feelings.
Mm,
That truthfully, we can't really, even if we know what's going to happen in college or in high school, we can't control any of that for our kid.
mm-mm,
But we can be really clear on what we're feeling, what we're sharing with them, the
mhm.
words we're using. So I'm curious about your personal process through this, as far as you say in your work that it's important for parents to process their emotions and not trying to fix them. I know you believe this too, and so I'm curious about how that was for you, or what you're seeing in your work around that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you know how some things happen in your life that you look back and you think, oh, that's why I started doing that, even though you at the time it made zero sense why you were doing it. So a few years before Connor came out, he was probably still in middle school. Like they were young. And I had a friend who was like, let's go to this self care workshop. And I was like, what are you talking about? What is this self care thing that you're talking about? Because we come from the generation of like, there is no self, right? I was at least taught that when you have children, you no longer have self. Like you are married, you have children,
Wow.
there is not you. So I was like,
Wow.
so I remember sitting in this workshop being like, I'm allowed to do this? Like, it's okay for me to say no, right? It's okay for me to set up. I mean, I was like literally 101 in everything, like on boundaries, on all the things. And so the woman who happened to be doing that workshop was a therapist as well. And she became my therapist. We've now been together 10 years. And so but having that couple of years of beginning to do my own personal work with her before that and kind of opening my eyes and being like, oh, like these are really important things for me to do, I think got me to a place that when he came out, there were things that just made sense to me. Like, it's not his job to educate me. It's not his job to make me feel okay. That's my job to do for myself, and that's
Yeah.
also my job to help him because he is 16, and to get, find those supports for him and teach him how to do that for himself because we're just a few years off from, going away to college and living on our own. And likewise for my other kids as well. So it did become this, I think it kind of all stemmed from that, where I really had to learn how to care for myself first and how to empower myself first and be uncomfortable, really uncomfortable most of the time
Sure.
for a long time, and also
Yeah.
be okay with it being kind of messy and not following not that anything ever follows a straight line, but we like to think it should, and and being okay with it just not.
Mm-hmm. It sounds
Mhm.
like the work you were doing on yourself was so obviously powerful for you, but it also stopped this very understandable habitual behavior of wanting our kids to make us feel better.
Mhm.
Like it was very clear that the person who was in charge of regulating your nervous system was you, not Connor. And so that meant if he said he was suicidal or if he was gay or whatever they came to you with, your reaction to that is yours to manage, not for them to make you feel better. And I think that's so important, what you're
Oh my
saying.
goodness, it is so important, and it is such as I over time and as I've gotten better and better and more aware of, I think there's a big awareness piece to that because I think sometimes we do things and we don't understand why we're doing them, but then when we kind of get to that next level of like of awareness of our actions and how they ripple out to those around us, that is such a powerful thing to be aware of how that regulation immediately affects our kids, right? And they're watching. They're watching to learn how to do that. Even when they're older. I mean, I had a conversation with my 22-year-old the other day, daughter, about this exact thing about like, this is mine that I need to work on. This is not yours that you need to worry about. And if I am upset, that's not yours. I'm not upset at you. I am upset. It's an emotion and it's okay to have that emotion. I want you to be able to have that emotion as well. So there's still like these, ongoing, it's messy, right? It just is. So,
I'm curious because what I've found is that I'm not sure that the young person really means you can ask me any questions. I think generally the young person wants the parent to do their own research about this. And so I tell parents, don't ask questions. Just say you love them, you embrace them. It, this is who they are, and you have always loved them, and you will always love them. And then go do your research. Because I find that the kids or the young people then feel pressured when you're asking them questions. And I guess they're saying, do you have any questions for me, as a way of kind of opening up conversation, but I don't think they really mean it the way it's it's coming across. Do you think that's true too, or am I?
I do. I do. I think that is so true. And um, I'm giggling because Connor did not say, "Do you have any questions?" But boy, did we ask questions. And they were 1,000% questions that you should never ask, which I do talk about because it was like literally we led with, "Are you sure?" Like the worst question you could ask. And I can say that because we did it, right? And we recognize that now. And we've been through a lot of therapy as a family, and we talk about, I mean, Connor will laugh about this now. Like he's like, that is just, now that we know the entire story, right? We know what he had been going through he knew for 3 years, and he had been like struggling with, all of this internal stuff. So yes, and that is typical. That is not an unusual thing. The child, when they come to you and they tell you who they are, this isn't I woke up this morning and it came to me. It is something that has been
Right.
so long in coming. So I love that they do say, for the kids who say, "Do you have any questions?" That's really sweet. And I think the best thing is to say, I'm so glad that you shared with me. Thank you so much. I am so in awe of your courage. There's like a multitude of things that you can say that validate their coming to you, and just let them like take that weight off of them, that you love them, because that is the biggest concern. Do you still love me?
Yes.
Do you still,
Hmm.
accept me, affirm me 1,000%, like no matter who I am? Um, and are you going to do the work that you need to do? Like they're not going to say that, but they kind of need to know, like, I need for you to now go figure out and learn about who I am. And then we can reconvene. Right. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
such an interesting moment too for a kid where it is really all about them, but because it's telling you and coming out, it seems like it might be about the parent. Or people say like, have you come out yet? And a lot of my clients are like, why does everyone so focused on my coming out story? How about the moment I realized I was gay? Like, or what LGBT, like, and so I do think for parents to remember, like, this is not about you. This is not about you. Not like, I can't believe I didn't know, or I knew, or, and Julie and I talk about this a lot, but bring it just like you did, Heather. Bring it to your own therapist, bring it to your friends. Our kids are not where we process initially. We
Correct.
repair with our kids, but we don't do initial processing with them.
That's right. That is exactly right. And I love that word repair, and just the idea of because no matter what, there's always something. We're all human, and we're all gonna, you're gonna say something dumb. So just be okay with the fact that you are probably gonna say something that you wish you didn't say, or you wish you didn't do. And there is that. I think that is such a powerful, like, knowing that you can own it, right? But you can go back and own it. You can repair whatever you messed up. And again, that's something so important then to be able to teach our kids how to do, and how to do, both acknowledging that it is uncomfortable and messy, but also do it with just grace and being human.
We're recording this when you talk about like you're going to say something wrong and you're going to make a mistake. We're recording this around the some holidays that are coming up.
We are.
And, I think it's one thing for parents to, in a dyad, the parent and the kid, two people, accepting, right? And then we have extended family, grandparents, auntie, whoever. And we're all going to come together. So one of the things I wanted to ask was if you have ideas about, if you're going to have non-affirming family members, how do you take care of yourself? How do you take care of your kid? If you could share some of your thoughts about that, especially, sounds like you have some experience with that, that'd be great.
Just a little bit, yes. Oh my goodness, this is actually one of my favorite topics, and I was just writing about it yesterday because I'm going to do a whole series between, like, right around the holidays. I'm going to do 12 days of like tips and strategies for how to handle all these things. But I'll just I'll give you a preview right now. So the first thing is, if your child, there's a million things, so this is not necessarily in order. But if your child is feeling, what you're walking into, and that perhaps there are unaffirming people that are going to be there. And this is where it becomes really important to kind of check in with your child and see how they're feeling. It depends on where they are, and who knows, who doesn't know. Are they feeling really solid in who they are? Are they still in the space of like they're kind of figuring it out and they're still a little nervous, or they're, feeling insecure? There's a huge spectrum of where they could be. If at any point they say, I don't want to go, I strongly suggest that you honor that, because and there's a million things you can say to excuse yourself and excuse your child, right? The relative does not need to know the reason. That's not theirs. This is for you. This is where it comes in that you're protecting your child. And I think in so many of these instances, you can lead with the thinking of protecting your child. What do I need to do to protect them? What do I need to do to set a boundary? What do I need to do to to let kind of set some clear guidelines on, this is what is acceptable and this is what is not. It is completely okay at the table if something is said to say, no, that's not okay. I think it is for many of us, it puts us in positions where we may feel really uncomfortable. It may be things that we've never said before, but this is your kid. And that's where I think sometimes it almost like there's that like the seek or search for your inner mama bear, like that fierce, like, do not mess. And just put all your little ones behind you, no matter how big they are, right?
Right.
And so I think that is, if it is an instance where you are already at the family gathering and something comes up and you're, whether you're at the table or you're all just everybody's hanging out, but you are checking in, I would say, first of all, make sure you're checking in and let your child know that they can check in with you, right? You could either have some kind of um, nonverbal communication that's going on across the room. You could have a word that you say that's a kind of a SOS. Um, it is always okay to excuse yourselves from the room, excuse yourselves from the table, excuse yourselves from the gathering. Um, you don't owe anyone an explanation.
Yeah, I think that that's really appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think stepping into a space, as you've talked about in your work and now today, about the discomfort. And, in some ways, for a lot of parents, I don't know if this was your experience, but a lot of parents I've worked with, their kid came out to them. And then in some ways they had to come out as to their parents, not as gay, but as supportive of it.
Mhm.
And so there's a lot of shifts that can happen in the family dynamic.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely so. And I would offer that that can be really, really hard. And it can be shifts that may not have the ending that you wish for them to have, or they may not have not, I shouldn't say ending because things are always shifting and changing, but may not shift in the way you'd like for them to shift. People may not, you could share as much information, you could share stories, you can do all of the things, and the people that, your people may not shift in the way you'd like for them to shift. There comes
Yeah.
a point where you just accept, and it's okay to grieve that. It's also okay to take care of yourself around that. It is okay to set boundaries around that. And, you always hear, especially within the LGBTQ community, you hear a lot about chosen family, and that
Yeah.
kind of becomes true with allies too, right? That you may have to shift things around for a while. You don't know, but I think that, I mean, I can just say from my own, this is obviously from my own experience that I'm speaking right now, which is, I know that it is a little more drastic. But there comes a point where you think, well, if you're not willing to even, like, okay, let me just step back and start that over again. I know now where it comes from, and it is, they have the fear is so deep and it is so controlling that they can't get around that. They can't see past their fear, and it is fully religious fear. And so I now understand that. It took me a long time to get to where I am, but being able to see that, I can say, okay, I can be in relationship with you to a certain degree. Like, I set the boundaries. My kids are all adults now, so they know that um, they can set their own boundaries, and it's
Mm-hmm.
good practice for
Mm-hmm.
them. But there isn't any more that it's Thanksgiving, we have to go to grandma's, right?
Right.
It's Christmas, you have to get on the FaceTime with grandpa, right? There are not those rules anymore, and for reasons. And it's also it's hard. Um, it's hard that they don't understand, right? Like, I can say that they don't really understand where it's coming from because they just can't get their minds like wrapped around it. Like, they're in their own place, but it's not your responsibility to like get them there. They have to do that themselves.
Right. Yeah.
It's a very long way of
I
saying they need to do their own work. You can just cut right to that.
Exactly. Exactly. I think another layer, something that adds another layer to this is the trans community. So not only, like your son came out as gay, I assume that he's still cis, like he feels like a boy, uses he him pronouns, etc. But the trans community adds another layer of complexity because people have to remember pronouns, perhaps a new name, and how they, navigate all of that. So one thing I just wanted to share is that I think a mistake that parents make or people make is if they misgender someone, then they go, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh, I misgendered you. Oh no, I know, no, I know it's not she, her. I know it's they, them, or whatever it might be." That kind of over apologizing puts the focus back on the person who made the mistake. So I think it's really important for people to know you're going to make mistakes. And we talked about repair earlier. Yeah, you're going to make mistakes. And the way you handle that kind of situation is to say, "Oh, sorry, I meant she," or "Oh, I'm sorry, I meant they," and then just move on, because otherwise it becomes a situation where the person who feels disrespected has to reassure the person who did the disrespecting. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, absolutely. That
Okay.
is
Yeah.
beautifully said. Mhm.
And that relates to one of my questions that I was hoping we could talk about, which was about allyship. And in your work, you say really beautifully that it's not a checklist.
Mhm.
And so I'm wondering if you could give our listeners, some tips, maybe 2 or 3 things they could even do this week to really show up in allyship, whether they have a kid who's in the community or not. I'm thinking of a dear friend whose cousin came out, and her parents are pretty Christian and very unsupportive. And so just kind of what even an adjacent family member can do to be an ally.
Right. Oh my goodness, absolutely. So I think that, that's such a great question. I think there's so many things around allyship. Um, I know you can really get in the weeds on this, and I've been reading so much. Reading, and I will say, like, feedback from my kids. So I will kind of go to my kids with things and I'll say, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And they'll give me really lovely feedback. I mean, they're 25, 22, 20, and 18. So the 25 and the 20-year-old are the ones who are out. And so they especially will say, "That's kind of performative, mom," or "Actually, this is what it means," or so that's really, really helpful. But I will say, for kind of just basic allyship, just being an ally, one thing for your cousin, for your friend, um, checking in, just like simple like texts like, "Hey, how you doing? Um, I'm here if you ever want to talk. Do you want to go grab coffee?" Really simple things that, kind of to your point too, Julie, isn't like putting it on them to, like, feel like they're in the spotlight or feel like they have to respond to you in some way. More just, "I I'm here. I've got your back. If you need anything, let me know what I can do to make your life easier." Or let me know, I'm for instance, if I ever do any type of, like, either protesting or, going to parades or those types of things, I will reach out to people and say, "Hey, I'm going to do this. Would you like to come along with me? Or would you like for me to, carry a sign for you? Like, is there anything that," I know that sounds so silly, but like just letting people know that, like, opening up the space around you for them and letting them figure out, letting if they want to be in that space, where they want to be in that space. Um, what you can do. Like, when you open it up, then that makes them feel like, it kind of opens up their, like, they start thinking, "Oh, well, I really could use somebody just to, like, run this thing by," or, "Gosh, it's great to know that my cousin is there because I just want that silent support during Thanksgiving, or, um, a lot of it is just knowing like,
Yeah.
okay, that person gets me. Like, it's that silent, like, it doesn't have to be a big display of anything. So much of it is just that quiet, "I've got your back."
I'm curious about when you say performative, because I understand what it means, but I think a lot of parents who are new to with their kids coming out will hear that a lot from their young people. That's performative, mom, or that's performative, dad. Can you explain a little bit to our listeners, like what do they mean?
Well, I think one of, like, the kind of the biggest examples of it that we could give that most people see, when you see, especially in Pride Month, you'll see a lot of maybe not as many companies this year, but in the past, many companies have, they have their June Pride Month, like, "We are in support." When you dig down deeper, a lot of those companies are not necessarily in support, though, of the LGBTQ community. They are doing that to increase their sales. They are doing that to put on a performance. And so that's the biggest example of performative. I guess the most, like, broadly speaking. In a smaller sense, it is when an ally or one does something that is more serving of them. So it's a performance that they are putting on to make
Mhm.
themselves feel better as an ally, as opposed to whether it's saying or acting in a way that is in service of or support of the
Thank you.
person or the
That's
community.
helpful.
And what I was thinking was a combination of the two pieces that you brought, which is to come to the young person and say, hey, this might be super performative, or that other phrase that my kids taught me, and I can't remember now, um, about trying to be like humble, like showing that you're so humble, or showing that you're so
Ooh, that's a
virtue
good word.
signaling,
Oh,
virtue
yes.
signaling that, and like, hey, this might, yeah, that
Yes.
this might be virtue signaling.
Yes.
Um, and I wanted to check in with you about, like, I think that happened a lot, like around Black Lives Matter, when people were checking in on their African American people in their lives, and
Right.
this kind of virtue signaling and saying, like, I'm not sure if this is virtue. I do this all the time. Like, I'm not sure if this is performative. I'm not sure if this is about me. I'm
Right.
having this thought. What do you think? So you kind of bring it to think about together. So you're showing the person also that they can say, I don't want to talk about
Yeah.
this.
Right, exactly, exactly. I that is so good, and that I'm so glad you said that, because I think too it is in having these conversations, right, where you throw things out and you're like, "I understand to a degree what this is as a parent, but I don't fully understand it. So I'm trying to wrap my head around it, and could you, like, give me some guidance?" Because in my body, I feel like I'm
Yeah.
doing this from, like, the best place, and but it may not appear that way, right? It may not be coming across that way. You may not be
Yes.
feeling that energetically, right?
Hmm.
And so there's all those different pieces where I think it is so important to, like, be checking in, right? To make sure that how you are speaking or behaving is being, received in the way that you want it to. And I
Hmm.
think about that a lot, in what we do just with the podcast, right? When you're speaking about things, like, really being like, I often think, is this am I communicating this in a way that is conveying that this comes from, like, the best place, right? Like, I'm not doing this to for whatever performative or virtue signaling reason. So, yes, I like that you said
Yeah.
that, because it is good to, like, get their their
Yeah.
feedback, and to kinda call us out too on things where you're like, "Oh, geez, I did not mean to
Right.
do that."
Because for every community that there is, there are individuals within the community. So what feels like performative to one person might not feel it to the other who's in the same
Right.
community. So we have to be, and I think being less afraid, you mentioned
Yeah.
earlier being courageous and brave to make
Yeah.
mistakes. Um, I think that that's something when you come from the majority group, so there's such a fragility. And so, no, we're going to make mistakes constantly.
Yeah.
As parents, as allies. And I
Mhm.
think the more our listeners can kind of give themselves the compassion to do that,
Yes.
Oh
the
my
deeper these relationships can
Yeah.
be.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness, yes. Yes, and so worth it. I
It's
mean,
so worth it. Yeah. So we ask all of our podcast guests if you could name one thing, or two or three, but that is the most important, that thing that you believe that our listeners should leave this podcast with, what would it be?
I love this question. Um, and yes, it is. It's like a handful of things, but I usually, my big thing that I always lead with is love them. Like, make sure they know how loved they are, because
Yeah.
everything else just follows, right? Um, the second thing I will offer, because it has come up for me in a couple specific, a couple of situations recently, is when your child tells you who they are, believe them.
Yes. Yes.
Just period.
Yeah. I
Believe them.
love that.
Love it. Believe them and love them. I
And
love
love
that.
them.
Perfect.
Exactly.
Believe them and love them, which really believing in
Yes.
someone is loving,
Yes.
Correct.
right?
Correct. But I mean, I think we could probably get in the weeds on this a lot. We
Sure,
could
of
probably have a
course.
really fun discussion on this, but I've been surprised at I totally love them, but I don't think they know what they're talking about.
Me too.
Yes.
We
Right?
hear
So I'm
that
like,
a lot. We hear that a lot about, um, yeah, I think that's a big thing right now that's up,
right.
which is what's
And
the
I think,
truth, and their
right,
truth is the truth.
their truth is the truth. And it's not just about identity and orientation. It can be their belief system. If their belief system is shifting from yours, right? If their worldview is shifting from yours, those things, there's reason there. So, believe them
Yeah.
and be
We
curious
talk a lot
about
about
it.
that.
Um, and the more curious you are, right, the more
Yes.
that they
And
just
I
like,
think it's so interesting that both of you bring this up. I think it's about not just loving, but accepting. Love and accept them, because that takes the I don't believe you out of it, right? You can't accept someone if you don't believe them.
and I will even go one step further and say, affirm them, because it takes that
Yep.
accepting and it says,
Yes. Love that. I love that. Well, I think that's a great place to end. Heather, it's been so wonderful to have you with us.
Me too.
And maybe we'll have you back. And so yeah, that would be great. All right. So thank you for listening. Thank you, everybody.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you so much.
You've been listening to the Parenting Horizons podcast. If you would like to reach Elizabeth Cohen, you can go to www.centerforcbtinnyc.com.
And if you'd like to reach Julie Ross, please go to www.parentinghorizons.com.